He's been on the show in person before, rocking some great USFL gear about one of his previous books on the subject of the USFL. His latest tome is called Three Ring Circus, Kobe-Shaq-Phil and the Crazy Years of the Lakers Dynasty. Pleased to have Jeff Pearlman here on the show. How are you, Jeffrey?
I was thinking when I heard you talking about Kyrie, I was trying to think who's the equivalent from my boyhood of Kyrie Irving. And the name I kept coming to was Orlando Woolridge, which is your team gets Orlando Woolridge, and you're like, man, we are set. We got Orlando Woolridge.
Right.
And then about 2 weeks in, you're like, maybe we can get a second and a bench player for him.
Well, did Orlando Woolridge ever claim the Earth was flat as well? I mean, like, I honestly, I want to like Kyrie Irving a lot. My kids love him, and this is it's just weird. It's like he can't stick to a narrative almost. It's bad
Jeff. when you're a lifelong Nets fan, and I grew up loving the Nets, and you're thinking, where's the sanity of Derek Coleman when we need it?
Well put, as you only can. All right, so let's get into your book here, Three Ring Circus, Kobe-Shaq-Phil and the Crazy Years of the Lakers Dynasty. What did you glean that you didn't know going in, Jeff?
I mean, I think the thing I didn't realize, the thing that really caught me was the 03-04 season, which is the last season they were together, which
right.
I just found to be one of the most fascinating seasons in any team's ever gone through, if you look at it. Malone and Peyton join the team. They have this quote-unquote super team. They're going to dominate the league. But Shaq reports out of shape. The whole year he's miserable because he wants a contract extension. Jerry Buss won't go near it. Phil Jackson doesn't know whether he's coming or going. He's tired of coaching Kobe Bryant. Kobe is planning on leaving for the Clippers and is pretty steadfast that at the end of this year he's going to sign with the Clippers. Meanwhile, he's flying in and out of Evo, Colorado, facing a potential of 20 years in prison. And he's mad at the Lakers because of the quality of the plane they have him flying. The whole season is just a mess. They make the NBA Finals against Detroit, and they lose in 5 games. And Kobe, they have a team party after Game 5, and Kobe goes up to Kareem Rush. And Kareem Rush thinks everything's great. They're going to come back the next year, and Kobe says, "There's no way I'm playing with that mother effer again." And he's referring to Shaq. And just the whole year, it's amazing they made the NBA Finals. It's one of the most fascinating single seasons of just train wreck after train wreck in the history of, at least my history of writing about sports.
Well, I mean, you could make the case that, your book and the era of that we're discussing is, what would you say, the sequel to The Last Dance, in a way, right? I mean, that Phil, we just saw what Phil did with Chicago and all the craziness there, and we saw a 10-part documentary on that, and now here he is moving to Los Angeles with one would clearly say the heir to Air Jordan and Kobe with Shaq, and you just basically described that. I mean, Phil, it's amazing any of his teams with everything that was going on, despite the remarkable talent, was able to pull it off. I guess would he be the through line in that, Jeff?
Yeah, I think so. It's really interesting. People say, they always get he had so much talent, he had to win, blah, blah, blah. The thing about Chicago, the pecking order was always really clear. Like, Pippen was never trying to be Jordan. It was not part of the plan. It wasn't like Pippen was plotting, I should be getting more touches. I'm Jordan. I'm better at this guy. In L.A., I mean, from the very beginning, Kobe, and this is kind of what made him great and brought a lot of his greatness, is I'm better at it. I should be the number one guy. I should be the number one guy. And when you're a coach, when Phil Jackson showed up in L.A., in 99, and he made it very clear, we're going to run this offense, the triangle. Here's Tex Winter. He's the brainchild behind it. It's got to go through Shaq. It's going to go through Shaq. And Kobe, you're the number 2 guy. And Kobe was such a brilliant talent that they won back-to-back-to-backs, but he never really fully bought into this idea that I'm the number 2 and he's the number 1. And I just think that Phil was able to get so much out of that team with that level of sort of dysfunction. It's pretty freaking amazing, actually.
It's pretty freaking amazing is one way to put it. And so we all know that there was a coming together between Kobe and Shaq later in life, and with Kobe's life getting cut short, we know it was about a year or two before all of that they did get together. Does that surprise you, based on you digging so deep into a time where so many feelings and emotions were raw, Jeff?
Yeah, I would say no, because I just think I thought about this a lot. The book was done before Kobe died, and I was just thinking, like, who you are at 25, who any of us are at 25, is not who we are when we're, in his case, 41. And the same goes for Shaq. And I actually think, I've been thinking about it a lot. When you think about Kobe, you think about Shaq. When you think about Shaq, you think about Kobe. And, you know, like Hall and Oates, they don't get along well together. They don't go out together. They don't travel together. They don't frequent together. They show up at their show. They play their show, and they leave. But they still have that bond, that eternal bond. And I feel like Shaq and Kobe, there's just an eternal bond. And when Kobe died, for Shaq, he was just losing this person who you are attached to and who you did so much with. And he's never going to be your best friend, but you have this history with him that's really, really profound. And I think you saw that just hit him and overwhelm him when he learned of Kobe's death, just that they had this shared bond that was really rocky and really turbulent, but produced some amazing memories for a lot of people.
Three Ring Circus is Jeff Pearlman's latest book about the Kobe-Shaq-Phil crazy years of the Lakers dynasty. And so you've written about this dynasty. You've written about the Cowboys dynasty, the Boys Will Be Boys, the glory days and party nights of the Cowboys dynasty. You've written about Showtime. So you've also written about the USFL, Barry Bonds. Jeff, what have you learned about team chemistry? What can you say about the concept of locker rooms in total disarray, but talent wins through, in other spots where, you know, you've written about the Mets too, where talent is great, but it just can't get through locker room disarray and what have you learned about chemistry throughout all of your years of reporting, Jeff?
I just think it's overrated. I really do. I do. I think there was a great book by Joan Ryan earlier this year about the importance of team chemistry, and it was great, and it was a great read. And I just don't see it. I just think at the end of the day, this was not a team with great chemistry, but they had two of the five best players on the court, always, you know, and they had these role players who fit their slots really well. And it's not like everyone was going out to dinner after games. It's not like they were all buddy-buddy. I mean, Shaq and Kobe, they were not friends at all. They were teammates and coworkers, but they were so good. And if you don't have good team chemistry, but you have a really good leader who can sort of task focus you and make sure when the time comes, what you are doing is very precise, you're going to win a lot of games. So I just think, I remember when I was writing about baseball, and Barry Bonds and Jeff Kent were teammates, and everyone wanted to do this story of how they're really starting to understand each other. Those two guys hated each other. They probably didn't say 5 words to each other in the course of a season unless it was F-U. But they were really good. So I just think at the end of the day, ultimately, if you're really, really good and you have a decent coach keeping things in order, a Dusty Baker or Phil Jackson or Davey Johnson or Jimmy Johnson, you're going to probably your odds of success are good, even if you don't get along that well.
So then how do you explain the Clippers of this year then, Jeff? Right? I mean,
I'm not saying it's a fail-proof situation.
You know what I mean? Because again, Paul George's statement after it's all over, saying that they just didn't spend enough time together, even though they were just quarantined for 6 to 8 weeks in a way that he, in very meaningful and moving language, talking about the depression of the bubble, that they hadn't spent enough time together, and they have Kawhi and they have Paul George and they've got 2 sixth men of the year and a coach who's won it all before, and they don't even get to the conference finals, right? I mean, like, he was kind of blaming team chemistry in a way.
Yeah, I do think I'm not just using it as an excuse to defend my argument. I do think the weirdness of the bubble and COVID and everything throws a little X factor in that's hard to measure. And I also think Denver was a really good team. Like, I do think in the midst of all that, people sort of forgot that Denver was really good.
Right.
Like, really good. And it's sort of like everyone was looking, especially out here in Southern California, everyone's looking for the excuses and, well, how could they let this happen? Well, maybe Denver was just better to a certain degree. I mean, they were really, really good. And I just think being in this bubble and being in this world right now is a really depressing place to be. And maybe, I guess in some circumstances, team chemistry is important if you're all living through hell.
What reaction, a few more minutes left with Jeff Pearlman here on the Rich Eisen Show. Three Ring Circus is his latest book, Kobe-Shaq-Phil on the crazy years of the Laker dynasty. What's been the reaction from the Kobe lovers out there about you covering a part of his life that I think they would like to forget? What's been that?
So I was braced. I was braced for it to be really, really bad. And my cousin read the book a few weeks ago, and he said, man, this is going to be rough. I've gotten 3 negative tweets. And while those 3 negative tweets, all from anonymous people, were quite wounding, overall, it hasn't. I've been I feel like because people knew who Kobe was, like when I wrote a Walter Payton biography, and the backlash initially was really fierce. But in Chicago, Walter Payton was strictly deified. And I do feel like Eagle, Colorado, for example, everyone saw that happen. Everyone watched it happen, the court case and everything going on. Even his difficulty with Shaq, that's not a secret. People knew that he could be ornery and difficult and rough as a young player. So I just feel like the main reaction I've gotten, I'm not making this up, I already swear, like the main reaction has been, you wrote it honestly, it's not surprising, but you were fair. So that's kind of all you can hope for.
Okay, and when it's all said and done, do you think we're going to write about LeBron in the same way of being a Laker great when it's all said and done, Jeff?
Not in the same way. Do you think so?
No, I just think that we're gonna. I think we're 3 more games away from seeing him get one. I don't think Anthony Davis is going anywhere. I think that they've got a general manager who definitely got the pieces right this non-playing season. I think the coach getting the win here is going to earn Frank Vogel more respect. I think that when fans are let back into Staples, it's going to be must-see stuff. I think that LeBron is not done after this year by any stretch of the imagination. And I think that he's going to have banners, plural, up in that Staples Center. And that's the thing that I don't think he'll ever be, obviously the same level of Kobe. But we will be talking about Showtime era and this era that you've written about, and maybe right now. I do think so. Jeff?
I think LeBron will go down in Laker history in the way Wilt Chamberlain does, where you sort of think of him as another team first, but he goes down. I know he'll obviously win more than Wilt did with Lakers, but he'll go down as a very special player. He'll have his number retired. But I do think at the end of the day, Kobe's a Laker. Even Shaq is really a Laker. And I think LeBron, you think, is a Cleveland guy who had some really great years in L.A.
What's next for you? What are you curious about, Jeff? What else?
I'm doing a Bo Jackson biography.
Okay.
Now we're talking, Jeff.
Okay. Are you talking to Bo? Are you in contact with him?
I talked to him once for a half hour. He has not been the most cooperative, but he's been very nice. So he's a very guarded human being. He's a really nice guy, but very guarded.
So what are you looking at? What are you curious about? What are you curious about?
I just think the mythology of that guy is ridiculous. And I've interviewed about 250, 300 people so far, and you just get over and over again, I'm going to tell you something and you're not going to believe it. Like you hear that all the time. I'm going to tell you something and you're not going to believe it, but I swear to God it's true. I'm going to tell you, he hit a home run that went 700 feet. I know you don't believe me. It's true. I was with Bo. He was standing in a pool, and he jumped flat-footed, waist deep out of the pool. I know you're not going to believe me, but it's true. Like over and over again. And I freaking loved the book. Wouldn't be nearly as interesting if he played 12 years in the NFL and was Marcus Allen, or played 15 years in Major League Baseball and became Kirk Gibson. Like the mythology is the thing there.
Have you spoken to Dion about him yet?
No, not yet.
Oh, you have to. Because you want to talk about the eras, right, of baseball and football, and being able to do remarkable things on either field, and at the same time, two sports stars. I mean, Dion. I know that Dion doesn't have the same mythology in baseball as Bo Jackson did, but Dion could have been the World Series MVP had the Braves beaten the Blue Jays in the year that the Blue Jays won. Basically, just look those figures up. And then in terms of being able to do spectacular things on a football field, as well as know the guy and be able to speak about the difficulty of doing these things at once at the same time with everybody staring at you and having promotional campaigns built around you, I think he'd be an excellent interview for you, Jeff. Oh, I agree. There's also an amazing video of Bo's senior year at Auburn and Dion coming in to make the tackle, and Bo just tossing him aside like a ragdoll, just threw him. Well, that's not Dion's forte. I mean, of all the things that we're talking about, Dion's mythology, I don't think tackling has ever been one of them. But watch, Jackson State will be the best tackling team in all of college football because he's getting ready to bring all that. Hey, Jeff, congrats on the book. Let's keep chatting. This was great as expected. You take care of yourself. All right, thanks, Rich. I appreciate it. That's Jeff Pearlman at Jeff Pearlman on Twitter. Three Ring Circus. Kobe, Shaq, Phil, and the crazy years of the Lakers dynasty. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.